Hello boys and girls. So, you will be spared another unboxing video, oh ye heathens. Today I'm going to talk about my new toy. These are the Acora VRC speakers. Now, those of you who follow shows and like to read a lot of reports and so on, you already know who I'm talking about. But for those of you who don't, Acora is a Canadian company. They started out many years ago, but at the time, Valerio, one of the owners and chief designer, could not make producing granite in a way that made sense. Now, Valerio comes from a family of stone cutters, and they make all kinds of stone products and so on, and so he's the second generation. He always loved speakers made of stone, in particular granite, because according to him, granite is the hardest material. According to him, even more dense or even harder than diamond. I'm not sure what the distinctions are, but if you go on the website, he talks about it. Anyway, so he's always wanted to do so, and then I met him just before COVID at a show. I'm trying to remember which show it was. Rocky Mountain, as a matter of fact. And I was amazed by how big the room was, and yet he was using first the tiny little speakers, the SRBs, and then I heard the SRC 1s and the SRC 2s, if I remember correctly, and was really impressed by the neutrality, the accuracy, the speed, the transient response. It reminded me of an extremely good electrostatic speaker, but with real meat and power. So I invited him to bring the speakers over to the store. And then, of course, COVID happened, and we had to delay it. And eventually, we got the speakers in, and I was immediately sold. The speakers are fantastic. Approximately 9 months ago, maybe, or maybe a year ago, Valerio finally introduced his new top-of-the-line speaker, and he calls it the VRC. So I'll go into some details about these speakers. So according to him, these are a three-way bass reflex speaker that uses 1 1/4 inch, I believe, beryllium dome tweeter, 2 4.5 inch mid-range drivers, and 2 12-inch woofers right at the bottom over there. They are a 4-ohm speaker, and the sensitivity is 94.5 dB, which means they're very sensitive. So despite the fact that they're a 4-ohm speaker, you can probably use a low power tube amplifier if you so desire, as long as you don't really love to crank very hard. Although Val at many of the shows has been demoing with tube amps like VACs and audio researchers and filling up rooms that are huge. When I say huge, I'm talking huge. So they're certainly capable of producing tremendous amounts of outputs with decent amount of power. Rated frequency response is 80 to 40 kilohertz. The website says 80 to 40 hertz. I was going to tease Val and say, you just measured the woofers, you didn't measure anything else? So Val, if you're watching this, check your website. Now, dimensions. They are 24 inches wide. So, and I actually measured it. The speakers have an outrigger or metal supports, if you will, where the spikes go into, and I measured from the end to end, so this way you'll know exactly, or as close as possible, what the actual dimensions are. So it's 24 inches wide, 52.5 inches high, and 21 inches deep. Okay, again, measured from end to end. For the rest of the world, that's 60.96 centimeters wide, 133.35 centimeters high, and 53.34 centimeters deep, and 430 pounds, or 195.4 kilograms. Now, if we use our Allison meter, that's 3.5 times what Allison weighs. This is some serious speaker. Okay, so I first heard them when they were still the final prototype at Val's house, and they were very impressive. But it was a relatively limited listen, and then we had them at the Toronto Audiofest last October, and boy, we had a huge room, and they astounded visitors. You can read the show reports. If you go to his website, there's all kinds of show reports where he's gotten best of the show, best sound of the show, on and on and on. Just an incredible speaker. a couple of things to note. Val hates to compromise. As a matter of fact, he's a bit of a perfectionist. And so he uses only the very, very best parts, but the parts have to integrate. So in other words, there's no point saying that this tweeter is the very best if it cannot integrate with the rest of the drivers. And this is a relatively common situation where you will see speakers that proclaim to use the very best tweeter, the very best mid-range, the very best woofer, but then when you listen to it, it doesn't sound coherent at all. It just sounds like a big mess. One of the things that Val does is spend literally hundreds, if not thousands of hours sweating the details and making sure the drivers blend really, really well. And so that's what he does. The crossover parts are the finest, and again, finest both by measurement as well as by ear. But he also adheres to the philosophy of minimalism. In other words, use the very best drivers and best design first, and then use crossovers as necessary. Same with the cabinet material. Because cabinet is so hard using granite, there's no need for bracing inside. And because there's no need for bracing, the internal volume is actually larger than a normal speaker using the same dimensions because there's no bracing. They use some dampening where necessary. And on the back of the speaker, you'll see 2 ports. Allison will show some B-rolls and show you what I'm talking about. Couple things. The shape looks like a truncated pyramid or trapezoid, I guess. The sides are sloped. The front, the way he sets up is almost perfectly perpendicular to the floor. It's as flat as it gets. The back has a slope. And so now let's look at the floor, the outriggers, I call them. Allison can show it. Okay, so this is a solid piece of aluminum, right? And it's cut and shaped the way that Val likes it, which also plays to the truncated pyramidal shape. You can see there's a cover over here. This is a metal cover. When you take the metal cover off, you will see an Allen screw. And what this allows you to set up easily is to adjust the level very, very easily. Just take an Allen key and turn it, and you can easily adjust the rake or the level as you see fit. Let's see what else there is. Actually, setup is really simple. One of the things I can tell you about Val is that he thinks through everything necessary, including delivery and setup. The speakers come in a box in a way where once you open up the box, the speakers are really easy to take out. I should have filmed it, but we forgot to do so. And then on the back of the speaker, which again, Alison will show you in a moment, he's using the top-of-the-line Cardas binding post connections. So you put spades into it, and then you torque it down, and 2 halves come together and make almost like a solid contact. And again, he's chosen that in particular because he wants the very best binding post system that he can find. So, just to summarize, Val and Nate, his trusty right-hand person, were here this morning. Actually, they came yesterday, and then he came back this morning to do his final tweaking and setup. I was really busy, so I didn't get a chance to help him out, but I could hear what he was doing, and it's absolutely stunning. In this room, it not only fills this room very, very well, which is not easy to do. Our walls are very weak, but they'll produce tremendous soundstage. The speakers completely disappear. They just completely disappear, just like any really good speaker should do, but they also sound very neutral and very accurate. So if you're leaning towards having a system that can give you the very best that your system can do, this is certainly one of the speakers that you should experience. In our store, we're going to be using the Griffin electronics. So we've got the Griffin preamplifier, the Commander preamplifier with a separate power supply, and the Griffin Apex power amplifier that's driving the speakers. And we're using, for now, the Shinyata cable loom. And for source, we will be getting, well, I'll leave that till later. I don't want to spoil the surprise. For now, we're using a combination of PS Audio, MSB, and that's all I'll say for now.